What's going on, people? It's your boy Boxing Lowdown here. And look, we had to bring this show. This ain't the podcast. We had to bring this show to you guys today. Live reaction to the news that has had boxing Twitter in meltdown over the last 24 hours or so. And I've entitled it the One More Week Show. So I'm going to bring on my co-host, as you know, my guest, as always, Mr. Laurie from AFTV. What's going on, man?
Hey, hang on. I've just got to take a call. Hang on a minute. Yeah. Oh, what? Oh, right. Okay. All right. So one more week. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. I'll let you know. That was Eddie. He said, "One more week, mate."
This is our live reaction, man, to the news that Fury and AJ is on the brink of collapse after Deontay Wilder won his court arbitration last night against Tyson Fury. It was confirmed, granting him an immediate shot at Tyson Fury, as was agreed in their contract. Now, we've had a lot of people over the last 24 hours or so ask me, we need to jump on a live, we need to do this. So we're here now. We're here to give our live reaction. And just to let you guys know as well, our podcast will still be running on Thursday because we do have a big fight to look forward to there. So this is just our reaction to the news that broke over yesterday. And let's get straight to it, man. I've got a comment here from my bro, Ian Hamilton. Let's get started, man. Ian Hamilton's put, all right, let's get going, guys. Not like anything hasn't happened, has it? Now, for those that don't know, and if you don't know, I don't know where you've been. You've been living under a rock somewhere. But Fury and AJ, as I said, is on the brink of collapse right now. Deontay Wilder winning that court arbitration against Tyson Fury, something that was always lurking in the background, something that, you know, Bob Arum and Team Fury kind of dismissed, but it was always going on in the background, and they kind of thought that they'd get over it, but they haven't. Deontay Wilder has won the ruling. The judge has said that Tyson Fury must face Deontay Wilder by September the 5th? Yeah, September the 15th. So if that is the case, then that puts serious doubt into AJ and Fury taking place in August. Now, Laurie, let me get your reaction to this before I give mine. Let me hear what you have to say about this. But before I do, I'm just going to go to some comments here. Lad has put here, I can't be asked with Fury and his team anymore, laughing my ass off. The Real Captain has put, big up, guys. What's going on, Real Captain, man? Hope you're well. Laurie, the floor is yours.
You know what? I could sit here and say, oh, I'm shocked, I'm surprised, I'm flabbergasted, I'm exasperated. I could use any one of those adjectives. But you know what? I would be lying, because I am not surprised. And deep down, I'm sure you're not either. I mean, first of all, this is boxing. And boxing is that sport, isn't it? It's just that, it's the gift that keeps giving in terms of controversies and incidents like this, where you just don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. But I can't say I'm shocked, because we first started talking about this fight over a couple of months ago. I think it was then that Eddie Hearn made some grandiose statement. Yeah, it's happening and this and that. And, you know, I mean, getting us all excited. He wanted to be the first one out there to get the news out the gate. And, you know what I mean, everyone was, oh, yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then he said, you should get an announcement in a few more weeks. We waited. Every week that went by, me and you'd be on the show, we'd be talking about, yeah, still nothing, but Eddie's still talking. You know, meanwhile, Bob Arum and Frank Warren, even the fighters, they wouldn't seem to be saying anything conclusive. So those doubts started to creep in till it got to the stage now where people were pushing back and saying, well, come on, Eddie, well, when is this fight going to happen? And he obviously got caught on the hop, and then he was coming out with what I call like defensive statements like, yeah, it's definitely going to happen. We're working on it. And to be fair, I'm sure he probably was. I'm sure he was busting a gut to get it done. But in the absence of a confirmed date, a press conference, contract signed and all the rest of it, it was starting to look dubious, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, we started hearing before the Billy Joe Saunders fight, oh, there's going to be an announcement. An announcement is imminent. All the fine details are sorted out. We've just got a couple of things to get it across the line. Remember that? We're probably going to hear on the night after the fight with, no, they said on the night, didn't they, at first? Yeah. Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo. That didn't happen. And so, you know what I mean? We were, as the weeks went on and the days went by, people like me and you, and I'm sure millions of others around the world, saying, hang on, well, what's going on, man? Meanwhile, in America, there were whispers about this arbitration process. Anyone who had gone online, as I'm sure you had, was seeing things online. Videos were coming out by various YouTube content creators in America, and they were saying a very, very different thing, singing a very different tune. So that the doubts were building up, you know what I mean? And then now we get this. So I'm not surprised, bro. I'm not surprised.
Big up Nathan in the chat here. He's put big up, guys. Scott70 has said here, it feels like Fury was announced in Saudi, then this wasn't a coincidence and Fury knew what was happening behind the scenes.
Yeah, you know what? When I saw that announcement by Tyson Fury, I was like, bruh, how comes he's gone out on a limb and announced it and no one else has said nothing? AJ didn't say anything. And if you remember right from the outset, AJ had come out and said, hadn't he? Because he has his company 258, which is like a promotion and management company. And he said quite unequivocally and categorically, unless you hear anything from 258, it's not happening. I remember reading that and I thought, rah, that's, you know, he's made that abundantly clear. There was nothing from Eddie yesterday. All it was chirping by Tyson Fury. Yeah, I've just got the news. Yeah, blah, blah. I'm going to smash AJ rear. You know what I mean? But to me, when I heard that, I was like, well, that's a bit inconclusive because it's just you. I've not heard anything from Bob Arum, Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn, 258, AJ, you know what I mean? Just Tyson Fury doing his usual mouthing off. So I was like, that does seem a bit strange. But I thought, okay, maybe the next day, maybe I thought to myself, well, maybe Tyson Fury just wants to jump the gun to be the first one to announce the news. And then that's been the other thing with this whole saga, hasn't it? It just seems to me that there are parties at play with their egos and everyone wants to be the first to get out there and make the announcement, you know what I mean? But anyway, so when I didn't hear anything from anyone else, I must admit, didn't you feel a little bit suspicious? Didn't it make you feel a little bit, well, you know what I mean?
I did. I just looked at it. I just looked at it like, look, we've heard this before. Do you know what I mean? Tyson Fury has released videos before saying the fight was on. I remember he did it about almost a year ago saying that the fight was on. So it just, the timing of this one, though, kind of leaves me to wonder, like what Scott's saying here, because he did that literally a day before the arbitration ruling. So, a lot to contemplate.
And with regards to the arbitration as well, I mean, I must admit, I've got a feeling, listen, I'm going to share it with you and you see what you think. I just got a feeling, man, that Arum and Eddie and all the rest of them, they underestimated Wilder and his team. Because this arbitration thing, this demand of a third fight via the rematch clause out in the contract is something I've been hearing about months ago, that Wilder was going to exercise his right to a rematch. And let's be honest, man, if they had a contract which states that, then you would imagine, unless, you know what I mean, they can prevent Wilder, offer him something to prevent him, i.e. money, then he was always going to go down this route. So it would appear to me that Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn and whoever else is involved probably didn't do their due diligence and take that seriously enough. It seemed to me they got blindsided by Wilder, man.
Big up my bro Sam there from Raps on TV. What's happening, bro? He's put here, this is a massive spanner in the works, but I do feel Wilder will take the step aside money. Do you feel Wilder will take the step aside money?
I don't think he will. I don't think he will, man. I think he's hungry for that third fight with Fury. And if you go online, you see he's in training and the noises that are coming out of his camp and his supporters and his advocates and everybody else over there in America, they seem to be saying, listen, man, we want the third fight. We believe that Wilder's going to smash him. You know what I mean? He wants revenge. At the heart of this is vengeance, isn't it? Because for those of you who don't know out there, Wilder, after that second fight with Fury, he felt aggrieved. He felt, to put it bluntly, that cheating had gone on in the Fury camp with regards to the way they, the hand wraps in the gloves and all the rest of it, and the glove situation. He wasn't happy at the loss. Some people would say it was sour grapes. I did, you did. I'm sure a lot of people over did. He was even blaming his trainer for spiking his water. All sorts of lurid accusations were being made. But to be fair to Wilder, he was fairly consistent with it, isn't it? He said he feels that he's been cheated, and that would explain his thirst for the rematch. And I don't think he'll take step aside money. I really don't. It'll have to be something humongous.
All right, but if you're Wilder's manager now, yeah, and you've got the chance to take step-aside money, I've always thought this with step-aside money, but if you've got the chance to take step-aside money, would you not encourage your fighter to take it, considering that you're guaranteed a shot anyway, and you're going to get money, and then you'll get money for fighting him as well? So it's like 2 paydays for one fight.
Yeah, but we know in boxing that's not always guaranteed. I mean, look, they had the rematch clause before, and that fell through until we got this arbitration. So they might not trust it, getting the step-aside money and the promise of another fight. And who's to say if AJ wins, he'd want to fight Wilder? He might go down a different route.
Yeah, true.
I mean, this is a real game changer, this, you know what I mean? And I think it's something that Arum and Eddie Hearn didn't see coming. And if they did see it coming, they probably underestimated Wilder and his team. They probably looked at them as some, country bumpkin guys from the deep south of America. And they probably thought, we ain't got to worry about that. And if we do lose it, we'll just play him a couple of million and he'll step aside. Well, it would appear not, because the noises coming out of Wilder's camp or his supporters is that, hell no, he doesn't want no step-aside money. He wants Fury's ass in the ring. You know what I mean? So, and I would say something else as well. Just before we came on here, I saw a brief interview with Eddie Hearn, and it was quite funny.
Yeah, I saw that.
He seemed to be putting the blame squarely on Bob Arum. Did you notice that?
Well, I mean, what do you think about that? Because it is in their hands, don't you think? I blame them more than Eddie. I blame them much more than Eddie.
Yeah, but what I would say is this, Darren, is if you're doing business, surely you should have sought those assurances, shouldn't you? He's saying, yeah, they told us that everything was going to be all right. Well, actually, this is a legal matter. Shouldn't you have wanted to see something in writing?
It's finger pointing at the end of the day at this point.
If you're going to buy a house, right, and you're going through those, at some point you're going to demand to see some paperwork that everything's in order. At the end of the day, it's finger pointing right now from Eddie Hearn. He is to blame as well. But I'd say that partly, obviously, Team Fury haven't got their shit in order. But I'd say they're all to blame. The only one that really comes out of this, but to listen to him in this interview,
the only one that comes out of this without really any blame is AJ.
Yeah, exactly. But to listen to Eddie Hearn, he was putting the blame fairly squarely on Bob Arum. He was saying, they assured us this, they assured us that. Well, okay, they said it was sorted, but did you demand to see the paperwork that it was sorted? You know what I mean? You should have been insistent on, these guys are businessmen, man. They should be used to dealing with formalities like this. You know what I mean? You don't go on people's word of mouth when it comes to millions and millions of dollars. Surely, you know what I mean? You've got lawyers, you've got all sorts of people poring over contracts and all the rest of it. I'm very surprised to hear Eddie say, well, they told us this and they told us that. It should have been in writing. You know what I mean? That's how you should have. And the other thing that was interesting in that interview is that Eddie said, and he said that the Saudi Arabian partners are not happy. And I would imagine they're not happy with him because they're probably saying to him what me and you are saying now, which is, why wasn't this sorted before? And what's you telling me about they told you? Why wasn't this in writing? Why wasn't this up front? You know what I mean? So
go to the comments here. My bro DS in the chat, he's put Fury's a fighting man when he's the challenger. This guy has been pro 13 years and spent 2 years as champ and has yet to make a defense. He's had more drug bans than title defenses. All facts. I don't care if this is going to hurt anyone's feelings, but it's facts at the end of the day.
All facts, man. You know what I mean? All facts. And that's why I've never, even though I've respected Tyson Fury as a fighter, as the way he conducts his business and the way he is as a man, I'm not a fan at all. You know what I mean? And if and when that fight does happen, I'll be really pulling for AJ to win that fight for a number of reasons, including the boxing reasons. Because I think with AJ as champion, you're going to get him wanting to put the belts on the line and conduct himself in a far more professional manner. This guy, he's just too much of a maverick, man. One day is this, one day is something completely different. And I just find it tiresome, man.
Yeah, the games are over for me. Yeah, it's over for me. I've had enough of it, to be honest. Yeah. I'm not afraid to say it either. I've just had enough of the games, the BS. I'll smash him, I'll do this, I'll do that. Yeah, whatever, man. like
some
what you
people,
said
some
here.
people find that clowning, that kind of WWE style. It might appeal to some people. Maybe some of the casuals like it. But I'm sure a lot of boxing fans like myself will get very sort of exasperated with all that type of nonsense. And I think with Fury, he comes with a lot of that, doesn't he? Let's be honest. Yeah. It's all smoke and mirrors, man. You know what I mean? And yeah, very good fighter. But like I said, the stuff that he goes on with is not for me, man. Not for me at all.
Ladder said here, Bob Arum basically brushed the Wilder situation under the carpet, and now it's just screwed the whole situation. No doubt Hearn will still somehow get the blame. Yeah, that's what I'll say. Look, you can point the finger at Eddie Hearn for sure, saying that he should have been more aware, he should have known. But let's not let Arum off the hook here. Do you know what I mean? And what they've done, they've been negative throughout the whole thing, and they haven't really said why. But now we know with this arbitration, this was lurking. This was a bigger problem than they even told us. Do you know? And
yeah,
I think
as I said, I honestly think that they've underestimated Wilder. Like I said, they probably view him as a southern country bumpkin who probably wasn't going to do anything and was just going to crawl off into a corner. And they probably thought they could bribe him with a couple of $1 million. And I think they underestimated his resolve. So I think this is a big win for Wilder, man. You know what I mean? And I would add as well, if I've seen those videos, which I'm sure you have as well, Daryl, I've never seen him look better on the pads and the mitts. Listen, I'm not saying that, him having good sessions on the mitts with his new trainer, Malik Scott, is going to be, the keys to victory, as it were. But he does look invigorated, doesn't he? Don't you think so?
Very much so.
Definitely a different Wilder than I've seen previously. And he seems, up for it. And he says he wants revenge. And I believe the body language and the statements he's put out, I must say, I do believe it. Whether he'll win or not, that's a completely different matter. But the energy from Wilder, I have to say, at the moment anyway, is very positive. He looks good. So I don't think he'll any step aside money.
Yeah, a few people here in the comments are saying the same thing. They don't think Wilder will take the step aside money. Nathan's put here, Hearn gets more stick, probably because of his constant interviews, I'm assuming. But to be honest, the whole thing has been a joke. And it just makes it. They really have egg on their faces, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you go online in America, the hashtag is trending, isn't it? 1 more week, mate. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to be honest with you, he does deserve it, man. He went out, He went out on a limb. He announced it when he shouldn't have done. He tried to steal a march on Arum and Fury and everybody else, and he got stick for that. And he's not been able to stop himself, has he, Eddie? That's the problem with a guy like that. His ego is very big. He's very good at his job, mind you, for the most part, anyway. He hasn't been so good in this particular situation. But sometimes a man's ego can, get out of control a little bit. And I think that's what's happened with Eddie here. He's been so keen to prove himself as this best promoter in the world and, the biggest and best promoter on the planet. That, he's just talked and he's not delivered on this occasion. And it's embarrassing for him, man. It's humiliation, I would say. You know what I mean?
WM has put here, guys, I feel like crying. Look, man, I feel you, WM, man. But where do we go from here? Because at the end of the day, the fight hasn't completely collapsed yet. It looks like it's about to. Bob Arum has come out today and said that he's not willing to offer Wilder any step-aside money. So that pretty much kind of seals that if that is the case. Eddie Hearn has said he's going to put it in their hands, Team Fury to deal with. Arum said he's not paying Wilder step-aside money. We'd rather get rid of him. That's what he said. So apparently the what they called? The Las Vegas Raiders, that stadium has been reserved, and it wouldn't have been reserved overnight. So Arum must have had that reserved from a while back, and that fight could still happen. So
let's hope for his sake he can get his deposit back, because that fight's not happening, man. I think we pretty much know that by now, unless they're gonna keep the date and maybe find another opponent.
WM has said here, Laurie is talking absolute bollocks. Eddie is the only one that has tried to make this happen.
No, listen, WM, I'm not disagreeing with the fact that Eddie hasn't tried to make this happen, and he's been, foremost in trying to make it happen. But what I'm saying is that he's allowed his ego to overtake him by making these grandiose statements that he wasn't able to back up. Mm-hmm. That's the, that's what I'm criticizing. I'm just saying that, he's got to take his fair share of the blame.
Yeah.
Don't you think, Darren? He's got to take the blame. I mean, how can you say in an interview, well, I spoke to Bob and he told me everything was sorted? No, businessmen at the top level don't operate like that. That's what he said there is like some brethren thing, isn't it? Yeah. When you're operating at the top level with millions of dollars at stake, all this stuff about, I spoke to Bob and he told me everything's sorted. No, you demand to see paperwork, it's been sorted. You know what I mean? You demand to see assurances that it's been sorted. You don't say, I spoke to Bob and he told me everything was cool. Anyone, you know what I mean? That sounds weak to me. So WM, that's what I'm referring to, bro. You need to take a look at that and, you know what I mean? Then come back.
JD has put here, Tiresome Fury is a big, Tiresome Theory is a big fraud. Him and his team wasted everybody's time. AJ's, Hearn's, the Saudis and the fans. Team AJ should never offer Fury 50-50 again if and when they fight.
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt that Fury and that lot are going to take their fair share. And it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out, because I would imagine now that what you're going to see is a lot of people are portioning blame to each other. So like I said, I've already seen an interview today where it's pretty clear that Eddie is lumping all the blame on Bob Arum. I'm sure Bob Arum's going to, you know what Bob's like, he's going to come back and have his say. Tyson Fury's going to have his say. Probably the only person who's probably not going to come out and start slagging people off is the one guy who keeps himself entirely professional and consistent, and that's AJ.
I'll tell you one, AJ already has. He put out a snap today. I don't think you have Snapchat, but he put out something today on Snap, basically saying that, what did it say again? He said something like that, going off at Fury, basically saying that, Spartans don't behave this way or something along them lines. So he said that this guy's used his name for promotion. So he's not happy with it, man. And to me, that kind of tells me that this fight is pretty much on the brink of collapse now. Well, for the summer anyway. For the summer.
It's not going to happen this year, is it? Let's be honest. It's not going to happen because what Bob Arum has said, he's not going to pay any step aside for money. For me, that means that they've tried to go down that route before and Wilder's told them no. So they know that not even to go back there because he's probably going to go like that and tell them to F off.
Yeah.
It's clear to me that Wilder wants this fight. And you know what, Darryl? I'm going to go as far as to say I wouldn't mind seeing a third fight now. I know some of your contributors and some of the people watching this may be quite shocked by that. I mean, listen, I've been quite dismissive of Wilder in the past when I first started hearing about all the excuses and all the rest of it and all the rhetoric that was coming out from his camp. I was critical. I'm not going to deny that. But you know what? The man feels aggrieved. He's demanding the rematch. He's gone to court to get it. He's won the court case. So that tells me that he definitely means what he says. And he's got back in the gym. He's looking good. And I tell you what, there's a little bit of a backstory here, isn't there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a bit of a backstory. And listen, Tyson Fury's saying that he needs a fight. Well, he can still get the fight, can't he?
Yeah.
Until September to fight Wilder. So, hey.
Celtic Dragon.
Sorry.
No, Celtic Dragon has put here, everything the Americans touch turns to shit. Think positively. The Ukrainian will turn up to fight. How do you see Usyk and AJ?
Well, I would imagine that Usyk is going to press for the AJ fight. And if you're Usyk, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? I would watch that. You know what I mean? That's a good fight. I mean, I think AJ comes through, but it won't be an easy night for him. So I'm sure AJ he's probably itching to get back in the ring as well. He probably wants something concrete sorted, doesn't he?
Yeah. Ian Hamilton has said here, if you have a bad smell in your house, you don't let it get worse, you clean. The whole team around Fury seemed to be amateurs and were to think arrogance, thinking it would go their way. So he's feeling that they were arrogant, thinking that this would all pan out in their favor. WM has said here, I would love to jump on this convo if you are taking callers. We're not taking callers today, bro, but we will be for future shows. So subscribe to the channel and feel free. We'll let you guys know when we will take callers. But this is going to be a quick reaction show only. Lad said here, sometimes I disagree with Laurie, but he has a point here. So he agrees with what you say. And WM
agree with what I say. Come on, bro.
WM said here, Laurie, he single-handedly secured a 150 million site fee. How the hell can you criticize the man? So this guy, WM, is an Eddie Hearn. He likes Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, what are you in Matchroom's team or something, WM? What's going on, man? Listen, what I'm saying is right, listen, WM, you have to understand the dynamics of the situation. Eddie Hearn has come out and made a lot of bold statements about this fight. And it would appear to all intents and purposes now that this fight is not happening. In fact, I would bet money it's not happening. So where I'm criticizing Eddie Hearn is that he should have been a bit more cautious. He kept telling people, yeah, it's nearly sorted, it's nearly sorted, it's nearly sorted. He knows he's dealing with the Furies. He knows what type of energy they bring. And that's what I'm saying. You should have been a bit more reserved in the way you were conducting your business. You were putting it out there, oh, it's sorted, one more week, yeah, it's nearly there, nearly done. You know what I mean? Hindsight now, I'm sure that we won't do this again with other fights. And then, like I said, the other slight criticism I have, actually, it's not a slight criticism, it's a proper criticism. So if WM feels a way about that, then listen, man, okay, but I'm just speaking my truth. The other criticism I have of Eddie Hearn, as I stated a minute ago, if you're doing business at this level, contracts, fights that involved hundreds of millions of dollars, how can you turn around and tell the people, Bob Arum told me everything was sorted? You should have been seeking assurances, and those assurances should have been in writing. You know what I mean? But he said, oh, I spoke to Bob and he told me everything's okay. And I'm like, really? Wow, that sounds a bit loose, man. That's a type of, you know what I mean?
I get it. But when I think about what WM's saying here, I mean, throughout the whole of this whole, I mean, Eddie Hearn has made mistakes. He definitely, like with what you've just pointed out. But I think that we should be going at Bob Arum and Top Rank and MTK and those guys more, because they ain't cleaned up their own house.
Okay, fair enough. But like I said, it's falling on Eddie Hearn's head because he was the one who put himself out there and said, look, I'm going to deliver this fight. And he hasn't. So it's only to be expected that people are going to come back at him. Listen, if that fight had come, all right, let me put it another way, right, Daryl? If that fight had come off, contracts get signed, the dates announced, you know what Eddie's like, innit? He would have been out there in his blaze of glory, doing the round of interviews. Yeah, I told you I'd get it across the line. I sorted it. It's the biggest fight in history. Rare, tear. Would he not? You know what Eddie's like, yeah? So now it's fallen through. You expect us to say, okay, it's nothing to do with it. It's not his fault. Of course not. He's got to take his share of the blame, as do Bob Arum and anyone else that was involved. You know what I mean? It's a collective thing. You could say, oh, you can apportion 60% of the blame to Arum and 10% to Fury and 30% to Eddie. But listen, they're all going to get blamed. Because let's face it, man, this is a monumental cock-up, isn't it?
Yeah, Diaz has said here, Laurie has a point. Ultimately, this messes down to Bob Arum, but Eddie should have got assurances, i.e. the contract. Wizard Sleeve has said here, Hearn has been taken for a fool twice now. Scott 70 has said here, Shelley Finkel is Wilder's manager and nobody's fool and has stayed quiet throughout. WM has said, TBL, this is Fury's mess. He should pay Wilder out of his 75 million share. I can't see Fury doing it, man. I'd like that, but I can't see him doing it. DS has put, let's hope Wilder does us all a favor and clarks Fury. So listen, man, DS, he's making it known. He wants Fury to get knocked out by Deontay Wilder. Does Wilder have a chance, man? Because that second fight was comprehensive. Fury did win that comprehensively, didn't he?
He did. But listen, we've said it before on this channel, and it's a well-known boxing axiom, man. It only takes one punch. And we all know that Wilder is without doubt the hardest puncher in the heavyweight division. He's decked Fury before, twice. One of those times it could be argued that he did actually KO Fury. A lot of people, myself included, feel that Tyson Fury, although he did very well to get up and he showed a lot of heart and bravery, you know what I mean, climbing off the floor. But let's be honest, man, that count was over 10 seconds. Well, a lot of people think it was over 10 seconds. So, you know what I mean? If the referee had called it off, no one really would have been complaining, would they? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Other thing I would say, Fury suffered significant eye damage in his last fight with Otto Wallin. Again, a lot of referees would have called that fight off and awarded Otto Wallin the win. Fury got lucky there. You know what I mean? It has to be said. I think the only reason why he was allowed to continue in that fight was because he already had the Wilder fight signed. A lot of judges, a lot of referees looking at that would have said, look, no mass. So what I'm saying is if Wilder lands one of those big right hands on the eye, or lands a big shot and puts Fury over, he can win. So as long as Wilder is in that fight, he's dangerous. And you have to remember that he's coming into this fight very motivated for revenge. And sometimes that can work against a man where he's too pent up, looking to land that big one blow. But then that's how Wilder fights anyway. So we could see a different Wilder in this fight. So I'd like to see that fight, man. And I wouldn't rule Wilder out. Yes, Fury is obviously the favorite. But how much motivation would Tyson Fury have for this fight as well? You've got to ask yourself that question, because he's probably thinking, I've beaten this guy twice. I really wanted the unification with AJ. Now he's been forced to take a fight that he didn't really want. Let's be honest. It's obvious. The body language with Fury has been obvious from the start. He did not want to fight Wilder again. He even said that I would never fight Wilder again because some of the accusations he made against him. He said that the accusations he took personal, as well he would. And he said that it offended him and his culture, the gypsy people, to call him a cheat. And he said, I will never share a ring with that man again. Now it looks like he's being forced to share a ring with him again. All these things can play into his mind in the build-up to the fight.
Fury says a lot of things, man. JD has put here, as much as I'm not a Wilder or Fury fan, Wilder is in the right and Fury is in the wrong. He should have fought Wilder in January to get it out of the way. He's a complete time waster. One thing I will say, though, is that Wilder was quiet for about 8 months after Fury beat him in February. Let's not forget that. And Fury did call Wilder out a couple of times. We've seen the posts. He's put him out like, where are you, mush, and all that stuff. So let's not pretend that Fury didn't call Wilder out after that rematch. He did.
Well, I got the impression that he didn't really want that fight. That was my.
Remember, Wilder was radio silent. Remember, he was radio silent for months. Deontay Wilder, for whatever reason.
Yeah, because according to him, he was letting his legal team do all the work.
We know that the rematch clause was activated after they fought in February, so we do know that. But then there was just a long. So obviously, we had the coronavirus period, and that put a halt to a lot of things. Probably this fight as well, to be honest. But I mean, I did see posts. Like I said, Fury says a lot of things. He's Mr. Contradiction. He contradicts himself, says one thing one day, says another thing another day. But I do remember posts where he was calling out Wilder. I do remember that.
Okay. I'm not saying you didn't. You know what? I'm sure you did. Because like you just said, the man's a walking contradiction. He'll say one thing today and something completely different the next day. But what I would say is that Wilder's energy has been pretty consistent. He wanted the fight. And I think they tried to entice him previously. What I'm hearing as well, I mean, listen, I don't know if this is 100% true. I'm just trying to give the benefit of what I've seen on the internet to your viewers, where he'd been tapped up before about step-aside money, and he told them categorically no, which is why I think that Bob Arum is now saying that we're not going to give him any money, because he knows that Wilder's not going to take it.
Here's a question here. Celtic Dragon, what's going on? He's put, what happens if Wilder cleans out Fury? Where do we go then? Dillian Whyte will be getting his bus pass before a title shot. And we have to consider that because, you know, we're thinking like, oh, if Wilder is paid the step aside money. That's something else. If Wilder cleans out Fury, then what happens? Like with the undisputed fight, will we even get that? Dillian Whyte's in line for a shot next. It's all a mess. Put it that way.
It is. You're absolutely right. And this is one of the reasons why I've been on your show talking before that I don't like rematches in title fights and stuff. I don't like rematch clauses because all that does is just endlessly tie up the title. You know what I mean? There should only be rematches in very exceptional circumstances. You know what I mean? And you know what I mean? When you get rematch clauses and people not honoring them and stuff like that, this is the kind of thing that can happen because legally, Wilder is in the right, isn't it? If you sign a contract to fight somebody, if me and you go to fight Daryl, and then we sign a contract that there is to be a rematch in 6 months, a bit similar to like what AJ and Fury had in their contract. Yeah, they had the same.
You mean Ruiz?
No, AJ and Fury. There was talks in it that in the build-up to the negotiations, we was hearing that there's going to be a rematch. That whoever wins, there'll be a rematch. I mean, why? Because supposing either of those guys knock out either one in the first 2 rounds, what's the grounds for a rematch? So to me, rematch clauses, man, I'm not a big fan of. You know what I mean? There should, like I said, there should only be a rematch in exceptional circumstances where there's proper justification for it. Because when you have endless rematch clauses, and it just ties up the belt. And then the guys down the ladder, as it were, metaphorically speaking, your Dillian Whites, your Alexander Usyks, and even people a bit further down than that, Hergovic and Yoka and one or two other people, they're not getting their chance. Why should they wait while Fury and Wilder go for about 2 or 3 fights just to sort out who's got the belt? You know what I mean?
Let's go through some more comments here. Got quite a few, loads coming in. Big up everybody in the chat, first of all. Don't forget to hit that like button, man. Share the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Ian Hamilton has said here, why have I got a feeling that Fury will turn up for the third Wilder fight overweight, undermotivated, and Wilder catches him early? Just saying. JD
I said that earlier, didn't I? I made a similar point earlier that the motivation going into a third fight, to me, would clearly be with Wilder. He's clearly the more motivated for this fight. Fury, and we know what he's like. He can be very indisciplined by his own admission outside the ring. So how motivated would he be for a third fight? I mean, in his mind, he's thinking that he's beaten Wilder twice already. Once very conclusively. He's probably thinking, I don't need this. And if I could just make the point, when you're at that level and you've had that many fights and, you know, you've made the money and had the career that a Tyson Fury's had, you will often hear fighters talk about this. Motivation is key, because if they can't get up for a fight, you'll see a very flat performance. So, for example, when he fought Otto Wallin, that was the first, and let's face it, he looked quite poor that night. That was the first reason that he put forward, wasn't it? Oh, I wasn't motivated for this. I need the big fights.
I think that build-up, I think he'll have no choice but to be motivated in that build-up, man. When you think about it, Wilder's like basically stopped him from, you know, earning a significant amount of money against AJ in Saudi Arabia. And the build-up, he's going to be going at you. You know, there's going to be those glove accusations being thrown at him again. If you're not motivated for that, then something's wrong. But we'll see. We'll see. JD said here, Eddie Hearn can't be responsible for another team. He can only be responsible for his side. Team AJ have nothing to do with the arbitration. If Hearn didn't try to make Undisputed, he will not be forgiven.
Listen, man, like I said before, I'm not criticizing Eddie Hearn in his efforts to try and make the fight. My criticism of Eddie is that he was a bit of a rush to judgment. He was a bit too quick to get out there on the front foot and make announcements, even though the fight had not been signed yet. You know what I mean? I don't know why people are backtracking now. That's what we was all saying a couple of weeks ago, weren't we? You know what I mean? This is part of the frustration with this whole thing, is that we kept getting told this week, and then it didn't happen. And now look where we are. So the criticism I have for Eddie is obvious. It's like, you went out on a limb and started making these announcements. Oh, it's going to get done. It's sorted. We've just got to dot the I's and cross the T's. Everything's in place. Now it's not happened. And it's not happened because of something that should have been sorted many moons ago, i.e. the arbitration with Wilder. They knew that that was an issue. And I'm saying, if you're Eddie Hearn and you're doing your business right, you should have sought assurances, written assurances from Bob Arum that end had been tied up before you go out there and start saying, yeah. Now, it's a bit like me going out and saying, yeah, Darryl, I bought a £350,000 house in North London, and you're saying, oh yeah, Dad, when can I come and see it? Next week. And then you don't see nothing. And then one day I say, well, actually, Darryl, I didn't buy the house after all because there was a problem in the court. You're going to look at me and say, yeah, but Dad, why didn't you sort that bit out before you started telling me that you got the house? You see where I'm coming from? I'm trying to break it down so the likes of WM and people understand what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that Eddie Hearn didn't try his hardest to make the fight. The problem I have with Eddie is that he was a bit too quick with that. And now it's come back to bite him in the bum. And let's be honest, man, the world of boxing is laughing at him. Whether you like it or not, that is the truth. Like I said in America, hashtag one more week. He's become a meme. Why do you think that is?
Stefan said here, if Wilder wins, we get Fury Wilder 4. And I'm just like, honestly, man, I don't know. It feels like this is never ending. JD agrees. And Scott70 says here, if Wilder wins, we will get Wilder versus the winner of AJ versus Usyk, unless AJ ducks Usyk. I don't think AJ will duck Usyk. I think
No,
that fight will happen.
I
Usyk
think-
hasn't looked good at heavyweight for me.
No, he hasn't. No.
I think
And
he'll step it up a level.
I think AJ will be itching to get back in the ring, won't it? Because let's face it, he's been training now for a while. He last fought several months ago. At the end of the day, he's a professional fighter. They have a limited career in terms of years. He will want to get back out there. So the Usyk fight makes sense. And now his attitude will be, listen, I'll take care of my business. Whatever Wilder and Fury do, that's up to them. I'll take on the winner if they fight. You know what I mean? I'm sure that will be his mindset. Because the one thing I would say about AJ is that he comes across as a very professional guy. And in that way, he's the absolute antithesis of Tyson Fury. A lot of the stuff around Tyson Fury is just up and down, capricious. You know what I mean? 1 minute this, 1 minute that. You don't know if you're coming or going with that guy. Like I said, some people like all that kind of shenanigans and all that carry on. Personally, I don't. But, you know, hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, Lad said here, it does very much seem like they've used AJ's name to make the trilogy bigger. That's what AJ seems to think, or from going from his Snapchat today. He basically said that. Diaz has said here, what Eddie needs to do now is get assurances the winner of Fury versus Wilder fights AJ next. No forfeit, no mandatory. The winner must fight AJ Usyk next. I think it's going to be very hard, man. I think that a lot of those obstacles were kind of put on hold, like with the WBO, with the IBF and all the other sanctioning bodies to get this over the line for the summer. But it appeared that we got all of that, but then the arbitration now has come into play again. And I don't know if Eddie will, I don't know if they'll have that patience with Eddie for, you know, after this. I think they're going to be like, no, we got obligations to fulfill. You need to do that now. Like, you had your chance in the summer. You couldn't get it over the line. Will they be patient enough to let, you know, this drag on again? I don't know.
And listen, let's be honest as well, man. There's some other big fights out there. The AJ Usyk fight's a very good fight. Okay, it's not on the same level as AJ and Fury. But there's other big fights out there. There's Wilder versus Ruiz. You know what I mean? If Fury doesn't want to step back in the ring and anytime soon, there's other big fights. You know what boxing's like, man. You know, in boxing's that kind of sport where as soon as you start thinking, oh, this fight's not going to happen, another big fight emerges on the horizon. So at the end of the day, man, the sport will go on. So it's not the end of the world, people. You know what I mean? It will resolve.
It's still disappointing, isn't it?
It's disappointing, but this is boxing. And like I said, boxing is like that. Boxing is
There's
like
no
that.
other sport like this.
Mired in controversy, always.
There's no other sport like this, man. There's no other sport like this where the best we just can't get the best to fight the best. Look at welterweight. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't want to delve into that, but there are so many instances of the best fighting the best just not happening. And us as boxing fans have just had to take it on the chin.
Yeah, look how long we've been waiting for Little Errol versus Crawford. And now I'm reading and seeing stuff on the internet which suggests that Errol Spence, if he beats Ugas, is going to move up to middleweight and try and challenge Canelo. And Canelo has apparently said that's not something he would rule out. So, you know.
Yeah. So Dragon has put here, I don't believe Wilder wants the trilogy. I think he wants the WBC belt. How about Fury vacates, WBC make Wilder versus White for the title and guarantee an undisputed fight against the winner of AJ versus Fury, same card? I think you're dreaming, bro.
You know what? That could may well happen because you just don't know how this is going to play out. I mean, I personally don't agree with Celtic Dragon that Wilder doesn't want the trilogy. I think he definitely does want the trilogy. I think the body language, the energy around him, some of the comments and stuff that you see coming out from around his team, he definitely wants that fight. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's the impression I get. But if Fury refuses to fight him and then, you know, it goes down a completely different route, then I could see that as well.
A lot of guys here saying that Usyk, that he's not special at heavyweight. I've seen a few comments here from people saying that they don't think that he's the real deal at heavyweight. Yet we're yet to see that. I mean, he's had 2 fights at heavyweight. He had the fight against Witherspoon, didn't he? Then he also had the fight against Chisora. Didn't look overly impressive in either. He's going to have to really step it up if he takes on AJ next, for sure. I think that AJ will be, you know, chomping at the bit to go back, get back in the ring now. He's been training like a monk for months now. So right. I think he just, yeah, I don't know. I think that fight with Usyk will be interesting.
I do feel a little bit sorry for AJ, man, because if you notice, the one man that's just kept his counsel and just got on with it right throughout all of this has been AJ, hasn't he? I don't think no one can apportion any blame to him. He's been totally professional, and he's been continually wound up by Fury. He said very little. He said the odd few things in the last few days, actually, because obviously he thought the fight was on. So then he started to ramp up a bit more of the promotion by saying he was getting ready to smoke Fury and all that type of stuff, which is what you expect him to say. I mean, what is he going to say? Yeah, actually, you know, Fury might beat me. Of course, he's going to come out and say stuff like that. But for the most part, he's kept his counsel, entrusted Eddie and the rest of them to get the job done and to get this fight across the line. And for whatever reason, it's not happened. So I do have a bit of sympathy for him. But like I said, he seems like a very professional and matter-of-fact guy. And I'm pretty sure he's saying to Eddie, listen, you've done your best to try and make it happen. For whatever reason, it's not happened. Get me Usyk. I'm pretty sure that's what he's going to do.
This comment here from JD is absolutely right, and I felt the same way. He's put here the fact that they have a date and stage and book for Wilder versus Fury 3 already is very distasteful as a boxing fan. Now, look, I suppose I guess that they're supposed to have a backup plan just in case that AJ Fury didn't happen, and it looks like they've got that here. But can we think that it could be maliciously that they had this in their mind, that this was always going to be the scenario of Wilder and Fury 3? I mean, they didn't just call the Las Vegas Raiders Stadium and say, yeah, let's book this overnight. They would have had this in the books for a while. None of us, I don't know if this was public knowledge before, but JD is saying here that the fact that it was already lined up for this date, you know, it's very distasteful. July, that's 2 months
well,
away.
In business, Daryl, you often have to have a plan B if your plan A doesn't go according to plan. So who knows? I wouldn't like to speculate on that, to be honest. But what I would say is there should have been some kind of backup plan, because let's be honest with you, man, Deontay had that little edge over them in the fact that he had a signed contract saying that there would be a rematch. Now, the way they would normally deal with this is to say, look, we know you got the contract. Here's some step aside money, and we'll fight you next. Don't worry. And then it would have been up to Wilder to accept it. But clearly, there's no relationship between Wilder and Fury that way. Wilder feels he can't trust Fury and Bob Arum. So he's saying, listen, I don't want your money. I want that fight. And it's personal. You can tell. And that's why I think that that fight between Wilder and Fury will either happen or Fury will have to give up the belt, because I don't think Wilder's going to take step aside money. I really don't.
That's what Stefan says here. He thinks that, he said, basically saying the same thing. He said Wilder wants Fury. It's personal. No way he takes the step aside money or an alternative fight.
And I have to say, you know what? Even though I don't like rematch clauses, there is a certain amount of honor in that, isn't it? Because far too many times we see people rematch clauses, step aside money, and all sorts of shenanigans going on in the background. So, again, whilst I'm not a big advocate of rematch clauses, if you sign it, then I guess you have to honor it. If the guy don't want to take the step aside money, not everyone's going to take money, you know, all the time. There is going to be that one guy who's going to say, well, actually, I don't want your money. I want the belt. So in some ways, I guess that's quite noble. And then, like I said, Wilder is motivated by revenge, and vengeance is a very strong motivator, as we all know.
I guess we're yet to see the outcome of, you know, the situation. I mean, it's pretty much on the verge of collapse. Some people saying that it's done already, but to
me, that's done.
I guess we're going to have to just, as boxing fans, kind of take this on the chin again, because we're the losers here as well. Do you know what I mean? Regardless of who you want to blame, whether it's Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, Fury, whoever, we're the real losers here, because we've been promised a fight for months. We've been talking about it. We've been doing lives about it. We've been Sky Sports and everyone else has been breaking news about it. And literally now we're here, you know, May the 18th. We've got the update that there's not going to be no fight, or it's pretty much on the brink of collapse. Now, yeah, again, it's a fight that we missed out on. And I don't know when this fight will be made, because it won't be for Undisputed if it is made after this, because the belts are going to get fractured for sure. I mean, there's too many obligations out there. Joe Joyce has just been sitting on the sidelines. Literally nothing going on. What about him? Spare a moment for him. There are other fighters in this heavyweight division, man. And as much as we want to see this fight, I guess we have to say that the heavyweight division isn't just those two guys. I mean, there are other guys out there that want to get on with their careers. So we have to keep it moving, regardless what happens.
Yep, and I think the one thing that all this has shown is that rematch clauses in boxing are problematic and should be avoided at all costs. Like I said, the lesson to be learned there is rematch clauses should only be no, they shouldn't be inserted. There should only be rematches for world title fights in exceptional circumstances. Because otherwise what happens is, like you just said earlier, Daryl, it just holds up the division. You get all these fighters in limbo. You know what I mean? They're all waiting their turn and they don't know what's happening. And this is what happens. And with regards to the blame, Daryl, I maintain that whilst I'm not putting all the blame on Eddie Hearn, he should take his fair share, man. You know what I mean? He was the one getting out there in front of the cameras, making all these big announcements. Now, if there's something happens, even though it may not be directly his fault, indirectly is his fault, because he should have made sure that those things had been sorted before he came out with the grandiose statements. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Daniel Latier said here, where's the step aside money coming from? I see Bob Arum saying he's not paying anything. Do you think Eddie will reach in his own pocket or ask Joshua to take less? Nope, I don't, man. Going by his interview today on the Matchroom YouTube channel, Eddie Hearn, to me, I don't know what you think, but what I gathered from it is that Eddie Hearn has said, look, this is your mess now, Team Fury. You lot deal with it. He's already made calls to Usyk to try and get that fight delivered as a backup plan. So it's almost like he's saying, look, I've done my bit. It's down to you lot now if the fight happens or not. We've got everything ready here. If you lot clean your house, then the fight will happen. If not, then we'll fight Usyk. So definitely Eddie Hearn ain't reaching into no pocket to pay Wilder.
No, and I don't think he should do either, because like you said, it's not his problem. You know what I mean? That's something that Fury and through his team, Bob Arum, maybe a bit of Frank Warren, I don't know. Well, actually not Frank Warren. It would appear that it should have been from Bob Arum. Eddie said quite categorically in his interview that with the rematch clause stuff, that was something that Bob Arum told him he was dealing with, and it was getting sorted. Clearly, it wasn't. But hey,
JD's put here, massive loss to boxing. Are we ever going to see an undisputed heavyweight champion?
To JD, listen, Jay, I know there's a lot of disappointment around now, but I don't consider it a massive loss, to be honest. I don't, because
I do. It is a big loss, don't you think?
It's a loss, but it's not, because we don't know how it's going to play out in the coming months. It's not, to me, it's not a massive loss. Boxing will get over this, man. It always does. You know what I mean? It's just the nature of the sport. For those of us who have been watching boxing for this amount of years, you know what I mean? I remember way back in the 80s when there was first talk of Marvin Hagler versus Sugar Ray Leonard getting made. They called a big press conference where there was a bit like this, where there was all this back and forth, and they called a big press conference, and Sugar Ray Leonard was expected to announce the fight between him and Hagler, and they gathered everybody there, including Hagler. And you know what Sugar Ray Leonard got up and said when it was his turn to speak? I've damaged my eye. I'm sorry, there'll be no fight. A couple of years later, those two guys was in the ring, and we all saw what happened. So it's temporarily, it's a blow, but I don't think it's something that boxing won't recover from. It always does, man. There'll always be the next big name, you know what I mean? And there's other fighters in that division now staking their claim. You got Tony Yoka, you got Ergovich, you know what I mean? You still got Wilder, you still got AJ, you still got Fury if he wants to, get his ass back in the ring. You know what I mean? There's still enough names out there to make good fights. So yes, it is a blow, but it's not something that the sport won't recover from. That's my view anyway.
Yeah, good way to round it up there, man. Listen, guys, we're going to have to wrap it up here. We do have our show on Thursday that we're going to do, where we are going to preview Josh Taylor and Jose Ramirez. I mean, that has literally been swept under the carpet amongst this whole storm of news over the last 24 hours. So we will provide an in-depth preview for that fight. But listen, I'll just say my final thoughts on this. Very disappointing. This is a big loss for us. But like you said, Laurie, we will recover from it. Boxing, we always do. We can never be pulled away from this sport, man. So there are other heavyweight guys out there. Dillian White, Joe Joyce, Hergovich, Michael Hunter, Alexander Usyk, and so on. There are a lot of names out there. There are a lot of good fights to be made. Let's hope that this fight with AJ and Fury can still be made down the line. and it's a shame. But let's just see how it pans out, man. That's all I can really say on the matter.
And I just want to end by saying, as far as the Fury versus AJ fight goes, hashtag no more weeks.
Big up to everybody in the chat, man. Enough respect to all of you guys for your comments. Don't forget, on the way out, please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel, man. I appreciate you guys always, and look forward to catching up with you all on Thursday. What are you saying, Lloyd? 5 o'clock, yeah? Thursday?
Yeah, man, I'm down, man. I'm down. I can't wait for that show. It's ready. That's going to be fire. We've got this massive fight at the weekend. And like you said, man, I feel a bit sorry for Josh Taylor and Ramirez, because all of the publicity leading into this week has been about, you know what I mean, no more weeks, when really we should be focusing more of our attention on what is a great fight. You know what I mean? A unification fight against two guys at the very top. You know what I mean? It's a genuine 50-50 fight. And rather than them, man, getting all the attention what they deserve, here we are talking about a fight that never was and probably never will be. So, yeah. But anyway, like I said, man, boxing, it's the nature of the sport, Darryl. I've been watching this sport many, many years. I've seen a lot. And what's happened this week has not really surprised me. Because like I said, we've been going back and forth every week. Nothing's happened. It was only last week I said on this show that, you know what I mean, it's coming like Eddie's crying wolf. And that's exactly what's happened, it would appear. So,
yeah. Listen, guys, have a good evening, man. Enough respect to you all. And look, guys, we'll catch you on Thursday, man. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.